Using this pool of money, lawmakers have attempted to finance stimulus checks that are roughly half the size of the $1,200 checks approved in March, or $600 per person. Discussions were ongoing on Capitol Hill about the exact size of the payments. Breaking news today regarding the stimulus bill that's being negotiated in Congress. It's looking like stimulus checks are going to be included in this. I know there's been a lot of people for a long time waiting on that second stimulus check to come, and it seemed like it just kept being negotiated and shot down and negotiated and shot down, and it looks like we're getting very close to it actually happening. And I know this is really good news for a lot of small business owners. It's really good news for a lot of unemployed people, and it's really good news for just anybody who has suffered financially during this time. I want to read through this article and bring you up to date on what is happening right now, and then we'll talk about it in the comments. Congressional leaders add stimulus checks to $900 billion relief package as they near deal. Congressional leaders said Wednesday that they are nearing agreement on a roughly $900 billion economic relief package that would include a second round of stimulus checks and be completed by the end of this week. The package emerging is expected to include hundreds of billions of dollars in aid for ailing small businesses. That's good. Jobless Americans, also good. Tens of billions of dollars in aid for other critical needs, such as vaccine distribution and schools, and a one-time check of between $600 and $700 for millions of Americans below a certain income threshold. One thing that is unclear to me at this point is if it's going to be $600 to $700 per adult or per person. The last one was $1,200 per adult and then $500 per dependent. There was talk for a while of $1,200 to everyone. It looks like that's just about cut in half to $600 to $700, and I don't know, we might find out, but I don't know if that is going to just be adults or kids included. The relief bill is likely to be coupled with several other major legislative efforts, from legislation to fund federal agencies to bipartisan efforts to rein in surprise medical billing that lawmakers could then pass into law in a matter of days. Lawmakers are racing to pass a deal in part because of widespread signs of economic deterioration in the face of the resurgent pandemic, as well as the imminent expiration of several critical federal aid programs by the end of the year. Nearly 8 million Americans have fallen into poverty since this summer, according to a new report. In part because emergency benefit programs expired, more Americans are filing for unemployment benefits, and the pace of hiring has slowed. One of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this story is because it just shows how vital it is to have multiple streams of income, which is one of the things that we talk about on this channel, whether it is passive income through affiliate relationships, writing books, online courses, YouTube ad revenue, a podcast, you do anything that gets you some type of multiple stream of income, so that when there is an economic downturn and maybe you lose your main source of income, you have something else to fall back on. Congress must also pass a new spending bill by midnight Friday to avoid a shutdown of the federal government. Aides said lawmakers could pass another short-term extension of government funding to buy negotiators more time to strike a deal. Tensions over the new package flared in the final stages of negotiation, with Senators Bernie Sanders and Joe Manchin engaging in what multiple aides described as a heated exchange during an internal conference call Wednesday afternoon. Sanders pushed for the package to include more robust stimulus checks. Manchin has said unemployment benefits are more essential to approve, and helped spearhead a bipartisan compromise that Sanders has derided as insufficient. Because lawmakers are trying to move the bill quickly, Sanders' opposition could be enough to blow up the whole deal, infuriating members who are trying to rush it into law. But it is these changing political dynamics that have also opened the door for potential agreement. Congressional Democrats had sought a much larger stimulus package before the election. Many, however, have now softened their position following President-elect Joe Biden's victory in hope of securing some immediate relief. Leadership negotiations were also revived by bipartisan legislation released earlier this week, spearheaded by a team including Manchin and Senators Mark Warner and Mitt Romney. The final bill is expected to closely mirror their initial proposals. As the bill begins to take shape, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi hosted hours of meetings Tuesday with three other most senior congressional leaders and their names. Negotiators have described those talks as productive. The stimulus package is encouraging. It looks very, very close, Biden said Wednesday in Wilmington, Delaware. It's a down payment, an important down payment that's going to have to be done. It's very important to get done. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, Democrat Maryland, told reporters Wednesday afternoon that he is hoping for a deal later today or early tomorrow morning. Even if negotiations reach a deal Wednesday, clearing it through Congress by Friday midnight deadline could be a heavy lift. The House could vote as soon as Thursday, waiving its usual 3-day rule for the review of the legislation. The Senate would have to then secure unanimous consent among its 100 members to skip procedural hurdles and move to a final vote before the deadline. An objection from Sanders or other senator could cause a brief government shutdown unless lawmakers agree to another short-term funding bill. The emerging stimulus package is expected to include a new round of funding for the Paycheck Protection Program, which faced significant controversy for giving government aid to large corporations, as well as targeted relief for other ailing business sectors. So let's talk about the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. If you have a small business, definitely look into whether you are eligible to receive funding through the PPP. Even if you're a one-person small business, there may be a way for you to get money for your one employee, you. And if it's anything like the initial PPP, you go through the process, you apply, you get the money, and that is processed through your bank. So contact your local bank. They will know the information. You can also find a lot of this information online. Obviously, do your own research. I'm not giving financial advice. However, don't think that because you have a one-person business, that you're self-employed, that somehow you don't qualify for these programs. You might, and it's worth looking into, because the PPP, for example, if you meet the qualifications, and as long as you spend the money the way they tell you to spend it, it's 100% forgivable. At least the first round was. We'll see how the second round goes. Democrats also secured $25 billion to establish a new program to provide emergency rental assistance funding that could be used to cover past and future rent payments, as well as other related expenses. So some key parts of the bill have shifted in the past few days. The initial $908 billion bipartisan proposal released earlier this week by the group of moderates would have not authorized another round of stimulus checks. Negotiators had tried to keep up the bill's price tag below $1 trillion to maintain a Republican support for the effort. The bill would have, however, included money for state and local governments. So it's looking like they went ahead and said, let's go ahead and put the stimulus checks in there. Slashing aid for states and cities from the emerging deal would free up close to $160 billion in funds that could be reapportioned for direct payments. Using this pool of money, lawmakers have attempted to finance stimulus checks that are roughly half the size of the $1,200 checks approved in March, or $600 per person. Discussions were ongoing on Capitol Hill about the exact size of the payments. Some of the $160 billion could be used to expand funding for vaccine distribution, people involved in the discussion said. The potential inclusion of stimulus checks came after a push from Sanders and Senator Josh Hawley, who threatened must-pass government spending legislation to ensure a vote on a second round of stimulus checks. President Trump has also pushed for another round of stimulus checks to be included in the final package, as some left-leaning lawmakers in the House. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin had proposed including $600 stimulus checks in the package last week, but Democrats opposed the measure then because the White House wanted to slash unemployment aid as well. I would say that that's progress. It's not where I'd like to be, Hawley told reporters of the bill under development on Wednesday. Sanders also praised the inclusion of $600 checks as a good start, but added, "I'm going to continue to fight for more." The addition of the stimulus checks is expected to also come in part by reducing the amount of unemployment aid. Congressional leadership has told other lawmakers that they are planning on reducing the number of unemployment benefits by 1 month from the bipartisan plan, according to two people granted anonymity to share private remarks. That could mean the extended benefits would expire by the end of March. Such a timeline could force the incoming Biden administration to move quickly in their efforts to pass a massive stimulus bill early next year. It looks like we have, for most people, a $600 to $700 stimulus check coming our way. It's unclear whether that would that would trickle down to dependents as well. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about this stimulus deal? Do you think it needs to happen? Are you satisfied with the stimulus checks being at 600 or 700? Would you rather them be 12? Would you rather them be nothing? I think there's a lot to say here about when the government steps in, when the government doesn't step in, how does that work, and how does it affect our overall economy? I want to hear from you in the comments. Be sure to give this video a like. Be sure to subscribe to this channel. I normally talk about passive income and online business, but all of this relates because everything in this world is connected. And so what the government does and the action it takes affects your business and my business, and I feel like it's worth talking about. So let's talk about it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.